Early in March, we began receiving multiple allegations of summary executions and attacks on individual civilians by Russian armed forces in towns and villages under their control. In April, as Russian troops retreated from the northern regions of Ukraine, including Kiev, Chernihiv and Sumy, we gained access to the areas where these killings allegedly took place. After numerous field visits to the three regions and having gathered accounts, documents and audio-visual material, we found that the killings of civilians were widespread. These killings were not confined to specific locations but took place in multiple towns and villages. Some places, such as Bucha in Kiev region, suffered more than others. We have documented the killings of more than 400 civilians in Kiev, Chernihiv and Sumy regions. The report examines 100 killings in more detail. The circumstances surrounding the majority of these deaths suggest that Russian soldiers knew that they were targeting civilians but still used lethal force. In some cases examined in the report, civilians were killed after security checks. A mere text message, possession of camouflage clothing, or a record of previous military service had fatal consequences. In other cases, Russian soldiers brought civilians to makeshift places of detention and then executed them in captivity. Many of the victims' bodies were found with their hands tied behind their backs and with gunshot wounds to their heads. Other victims, whose cases were examined in detail, were summarily executed on the spot. Russian forces conducted security raids, so-called zachistka, and executed civilians in their houses, yards and doorways. Russian forces also ignored international humanitarian law by failing to distinguish between military and civilian targets. Armoured vehicles and tanks entered residential areas and fired at civilian houses, killing residents with shells or large caliber rounds. Civilians were also targeted while moving on the roads within or between settlements. We documented numerous incidents when civilians were killed while fleeing hostilities, commuting to work, or attempting to bring food to those in need. Many of the cases that we documented may amount to the war crime of willful killing. Moreover, the total number of killings of civilians committed by Russian armed forces in the three regions is likely considerably higher. We are in the process of corroborating an additional 200 cases. The criminal justice system of Ukraine has begun the arduous process of establishing the circumstances of each killing and identifying those responsible, but it could take many years to complete. We call on the Russian Federation to abide by its obligations as a state party to the Geneva Conventions, to investigate all credible allegations of willful killings committed by members of its armed forces and to punish those responsible.